Welcome to Marin Poets Live. I'm Neshama Franklin. I work at the Fairfax Library and I love poetry. After this program airs on TV, it will appear on the Marin Free Library website as part of a digital archive. Today we are featuring poet Stefano Resta. And tell me, Stefano, did I say that right, or is it Stefano?
You said it correctly.
Oh,
thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I got the name and you got the poem.
Thank you.
So give us a
Neshama.
Marin poem.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll start with one that is located in the town of my youth, and in fact where I live today, which is Bolinas. I moved out there in 1968, and it's an important part of the fabric of my DNA and also my poetry. This one is called Garlic, and it's about some of my work on the farm in my childhood. So garlic. When my brother and I were young, we grew a lot of garlic. Day after day in the sun, on our knees, setting clove after clove upright in the dirt, burying them. Sun and sweat and soil, and the two of us, small, cultivating the unending rows of slow-growing garlic. When the sun began to set early in the evenings, there was the harvest, the pulling up of our labors. Whole seasons passed as we toiled with the fields in the basin of the valley. Oftentimes, I would simply bury my hands into the soft earth, imagining my fingers were roots. My brother would shout at me, "Get back to work!" and we would grow another year in age. He and I used to milk cows together. His rust-colored cow he named Butterscotch, and before walking to school, we sat on both sides of her, palms covered with greasy bag balm, and we squeezed down on the dangling finger-shaped nipples until we filled the metal pail. I used to love the sound of the first thin, powerful streams of milk spraying the walls of the banged-up tin, fresh milk, warm and frothing, and yes, we had entertainment. I remember my brother riding a full-grown pig one day as it squealed and charged in circles in its pungent mud and compost-filled pen. He held strong to the squealing beast's collar strap. I also recall one day how he saved me from drowning, dying, down by the dock, or so we both believe. That was many years ago. Eventually, we parted, as adults do, he working much harder than me, winning triathlons and working in the bustling film industry, and myself interested in sounds and rivers and garage sales. We rarely see each other these days, different places and large logs here and there. My brother still works hard, and I explore and fish. And though our visits have become infrequent, we always cook together, using lots of garlic.
Oh, that's so delicious, a poem. And it's so old-fashioned. It could have come out of Laura Ingalls Wilder or something, but it's so close to the city. Just an amazing growing up, and so full of sensory material.
Thank you. I was thinking about, actually, as I started to work on my second collection of poetry, how would I like someone to experience my work? And the immediate thought that came to mind is that I would like them to feel as if they're enjoying a really good spaghetti.
Ah, well, I can
That's
taste
the
it.
experience. So
Yes.
Food is pervasive throughout
Yes.
throughout sort of most of my works. Somewhere in there, there's the experience of food.
Yes.
But Bolinas has always been an incredibly inspiring place to me on a number of levels. The presence of the sea, the natural landscapes, and maybe even more importantly, the visual landscape that I grew up with in Bolinas was very colorful. My father was a ringmaster to an avant-garde circus called the Now Primitives. There were a lot of bonfires out at the beach, back behind kind of Agate Beach, tucked back in there, and he lived in the driftwood structures, and my mother was on a farm. And performers and mask makers and ritualists became a part of my visual landscape. People chanting Ezra Pound poetry and so on. So even as a poet, I've felt like my obligation was to capture an image in an auditory composition. And what I found is that by growing up in Bolinas, one can write sort of the facts almost as a journalist, and yet it comes across as a semi-surrealist, abstract poem.
Aren't you lucky?
But all I'm doing is writing down what I'm seeing, sort of
Yes.
the fire of what I'm seeing. So the point that I'm making is that place is a very important element of kind of how I think and how I work. And place can have sort of the presence of a muse, if you will, if a muse is something that inspires and stimulates creativity.
Right.
Another important place for me are the Hawaiian Islands, where I spend a lot of time. And the next piece I'll read is called Ho'ola'ia, which in Hawaiian means I hold you sacred. And it references kumu, which kumu means teacher. And this was the story of this kumu teacher who took people up into the jungles to find a koa tree, of which they basically brought down the volcano and turned it into one of their a tool for one of their sports there. So it's called Ho'ola'ia, which means I hold you sacred. Kumu kali'i in prayer, with a voice like a drum, opens the forest in a gesture of rain. Iku mau mau, ikua. We carry gourds of seawater roped over our backs, red in the red fish's gills, wind in a helix, taro in hand, to enter now the mouth of trees. Iku mau mau, ikua. Primordial click of the wood birds, scream of the branches, and night again in the dense jungle, miles from the sea. Twice the moon cycle in the night moon forest, flicker, wild snorts of the tusked beast digging through roots, dreaming of Pele, Iku mau mau, in an effort to find the native and immense arbor of the primary koa. Release our gourds of salt water in the roots, courtship, expeditions, chiefly colors of the redfish, laka, dancing in the ferns. With a powerful stroke, the tree crashes down as the horns of water exalt. With ropes and fire and rain and wind, there is vertigo, earth temples, molten, exploitive and destructive, goddess of affliction, worship, holographic waterfalls. At the center there is birth, magnolia, bird sex, pigments, refractions of blue. I hold you sacred. The tree spirit is flowing. Iku mau mau, ikua, iku mau mau, ikua. We with knuckles of wood, the wild tonnage of koa tied, noosed around its snout and tail like a wild animal resisting the sea. We come in great respect. Malama ka'aina. We work the koa down through the trails. The tree runs free. We charge down the ravines, uncontrollable. The tree spirit is flowing in madness, in ecstasy, indignant. Iku mau mau. Blow the horn shell. The water is calling. Circular birds and moss domes above alcoves of bone and coral. The sea is drumming through tunnels. Branches move like oars under the shaped body of the wood, shaped and carved during the descent. The dragon demigod Mo'o, shaped into an outrigger canoe, ready for the race, chanting, Iku mau mau, ikua. And us, now in the center of the tree, our paddles churning the water as we row, chanting, Iku mau mau, ikua. In the lava, in the moon and jagged sea, intense and full of applause.
Whoa. So this is why we have this digital archive, because this has to be said out loud, sung out loud.
Well, actually, the Hawaiians are very, there's a role for the poet or the chanter, right?
Yes.
In other words, the Hawaiian language is an incredible language. I'm really fascinated by the architecture of sound, and one of the reasons maybe that Hawaiian environment is creatively stimulating could be because of their honoring of sound. They have like 27 different words for wind. The wind that carries the rain, the wind that carries the fragrance of the gardenias, the soft wind, so and each of these are Hawaiian sounds. And I find the architecture of sound to be incredibly interesting, even without meaning, because what we're doing, we're creating atmospheric waves and so sound is really just a rippling of atmosphere, vibrational rippling of atmosphere.
Yeah.
Meaning or no meaning, sound in and of itself, and that we live in this architecture of sound and make decisions in this architecture of sound and feel emotions in this architecture
Yes.
is fascinating to me, just in terms of what it is. And the Hawaiians have a place where they sort of hold up the role of the chanters, the poets.
Yeah.
Even in this day, there's a role for the poet. They're seen as an important part of the cultural integrity of the location.
And what fascinates me is that that scene that you were describing sounds like it's right out of one of your father's incredible, amazing shows. Just Baroque and crazy as all get out.
Well, we had, I had met the Kumu, the teacher, and then went to the place and hiked up to where they found the tree. It took them a couple of months to find the tree and to bring it down, this massive multi-ton tree. And you could see these rope burns spiraling down these stationary trees where they were working it down. And I sat on the tree as they, it was semi carved, and then they did raise it in dry land. And they followed the old tradition, bringing gourds of seawater up to the jungle to pour at the roots of the tree as a way of the water saying, I have a romantic affection for you, and I need you to come to me.
Yes. Where are we going to go next?
Well, okay.
I'm so curious.
Well, the next one, we'll go back to some food. This one is called a chili pepper for inspiration. Beaming from the bush and quite unavoidable. So I pinch the blood-red, spear-shaped pepper between my fingers and appreciate its form. A little scarlet drop attached to a small green stem. Tiny little chili pepper. It's a dry afternoon under the haulikoa tree. Curiosity prods. So I eat the pepper. First nothing, then spark, then a wild conflagration explodes through the cavity of my mouth. Lips searing, tear-eyed, hot, fire-blowing circus act. And suddenly I'm bowing down to the Inca chili god, Agar Uchu, brother creator of the cosmos and the whole sky. And the whole sky tips and spins while I inhale enormous drinks of air, flapping my arms like a hummingbird, tongue numb, oral skydiving experience, huge howl into the flames, Aztec hieroglyphs in my mind, and somewhere a locomotive blasting through the desert. Tiny little chili pepper.
Indeed. Wow. What comes next?
Well, okay. I'll read one about my Mexican mutt, Cosmo del Barrio. I wrote this actually when I went to the mountains of Mexico to work on Earth Temple's book at the prompt of Joanne Kiger, our local Bolinas poet. So this is about. I now understand Mexican mutts and why they are the way they are. Cosmo del Barrio. Your father's father's father, Don Perro de los Perros, was a legend in Mexico City. A radical intellectual who knew the ways of the shamanic Mayans and the many permutations of the Kama Sutra. He introduced Tantra to even the most wretched mutts from the muddy alleyways under the tin-roofed barrios of that vast and dog-filled city. Short dogs, tall dogs, hairy dogs, hairless. He loved them all gloriously and gave Mexico many offspring, abandoning them to lead the revolution of the beggars and the thieves. Your father's father, El Hijo Pepe Zapata Abandonito, barely survived his birth, his mother flattened like a tortilla by a mezcal-inspired bus driver. Also a well-endowed romantic, your father's father moved to the hills of San Miguel de Allende. He gave liberally of himself to the scraggly, saw-toothed, and coyote-like mixed mutts of the region. It was here that he met his first true love, Carmela Margarita Dolores Rosa Fuentes Huatl Martinez, a gypsy mutt from Veracruz. At Carmela's prompt, they followed the trails to the city of Guanajuato to hear the famous musicians sing ballads of love. It was here, Cosmo, that your own father was born, El Perro Benito Centenario Don Julio Juarez. He was born under the statue of a coal miner as church bells rang throughout the city of stone. Your father was a wanderlust. He traveled north with the farm workers, searching the dusty outskirts of town for adventure, for love, for random scraps of food. He traveled over the volcano belt, through the Pacific Ring of Fire, rode trucks across the Sierra Madre and Sonora plains, living on cactus and corn, hiding in fortresses, keeping warm at night with the tiny Chihuahua or the nude Xolo. He met your mother, Luna, in the north, a regal and mesmerizing mutt from Torreon. She was a welcoming lover, delivering a litter of 11 on the eve of each and every equinox. You, Cosmo, were born the first in her first litter of 14 under a taco stand. An experience that kept your mother locked into a love triangle for 2 hours. When El Perro Benito Centenario Don Julio Juarez, your father, was eaten in the open marketplace of a border town, your mother applied her amorous magic only to smuggle you across the Texas border. I tell you this now, Cosmo, to help you remember your own parentage, your origins. You hitchhiked through California, journeyed north to towns with names like Santa Barbara, Santa Rosa, San Rafael. You were captured one day by the federales and thrown into a slaughterhouse in Healdsburg. It was here that we found you, shivering, wild, dirty. That was many years ago, Cosmo, and now here you lay after running the streets of Bolinas with Crazy Jane and Old Man Bernie, your crooked arms and legs pointing upward and outward, pointing toward the old gypsy trails and train tracks in the faraway mountains. Cosmo del Barrio Resta.
Yes, that dog is like the chili pepper. I mean, the entire Mexican odyssey is packed into that crooked little body. Is Cosmo still around?
No, he did pass away.
Yes, but not in the poem.
It's funny because the Mexican dogs do have so much character.
Oh, yes.
And you can sort of see that they sometimes cross the lines. Some of them look like wolves, some of them look like wild boars, some of them look a little bit like goats. And you start to think they're living by a totally different set of rules. Much more Kama Sutra inspired or some sort of, open love of the Mexican mutt community.
Yes, we have 9 minutes, you choose what you want in them.
All right, I'll go back to this concept of the architecture of sound, and I'll read a piece that, actually 9 minutes. So let me read a short piece. I did a series called Vortex 11. It was inspired by a series of very small paintings I did, and they're just fragments. So there are 11 of these very short fragments. And they're abstract in nature, so it's letting go of narrative control and letting go and just giving to sort of a stream of consciousness experimentalism. I'll just pick one. This is called Vortex 9. The world, the sources of creativity, the spiritual tradition of contemporary inspiration is sprawled across a devoted landscape of plenitude and sun. So I have a series of 11 of those, and they're meant to be small paintings, actually. It was for a gallery exhibit. And then I'll read this one called I Absorb the Sun. With sticks strapped to my back, olives, smoked fish, and water, I approach each mountain, each volcano, as a dream. I climb into the sky. Does my name define me? Do the names of anything define the thing itself? Stones, swords, light. In the midpoint of night, I look for light in the most distant star. I am a simple and unbound celestial navigator. I travel the valley of the sky. I live in the canyons of ash, of fire and swords, of ferns and solar mist, of reds, golds, and black. I move all day in the rain and the wind and the sun, develop geologic textures, configure colors into momentary revelations. I score my canvases with the back of my brush handle. In this semantic parameter of reality, will I grow wings? Will desire express itself as an infinite circle? My morning thirst is addressed by the fog. I seek the sea. Its surging strength is an extension of my body. For years, this has been my journey. You ask what it is I have learned. I will tell you that I still discover constellations that I have never seen, new shapes of light, sudden cylinders of smoke and wind. These new forms reveal themselves behind evaporating clouds, a cliff's edge along the edge of the sky, then flora. Rain mixes with the sun, birds lift. Everything appears and disappears in an instant. What had form becomes formless. Formlessness has become the rain. With my canvases stapled to plywood under the blue tarp, I seek the power of the sea, the flame and the wind. I pause, I stretch, breathe, meditate, absorb. Then I enter the house of silence, total silence. Suddenly I plunge into lava tunnels, sun prayers, fire breath, fire rituals, fire, crackling fire. My body paints and burns and spins, jungle of fire, cliffs of fire, vortex of fire, eye of fire, breath of fire, birds of fire, 7 stars of navigation, 7 points of energy expanding, pyramids of fire, roots of fire, tantric fires, triangles, the sun, self and selflessness, pulsations, vibrations in blue, visions, infinite fountains, portals, sacred centers, totemic stones, arches of red in the rain and the wind, hardened rivers of black, the triple mountains of memory, mandalas, symbols, flashbacks. The sea's turbulence unfolds me. Wind blows through my body. I am expanding, contracting, expanding, all directions simultaneously. The sea explodes on the rocks. And before the moon casts its bright light through branches, the golden mystic reveals herself, lyrical, singing amid the songs of the birds, opening like a lotus. In her presence I become the ocean. I become the bird. I feel every wing, flow, and gesture of all of nature in my body. Naked, I absorb the sun.
That's an incantation. And you basically just bundle us up and take us along on your poetic journey. We go to all these wild and wonderful places.
Thank you.
It's a lot of fun. So what can you put in 4 minutes?
In 4 minutes.
It's hard to squish you down. You're very expensive.
Thank you. In 4 minutes, I would say that I could take us to, I travel extensively around the world. I've been around the world many times, and I was in the Middle East a few years ago, sort of a little bit slightly before the conflict in Syria. I went to a place called Heliopolis, which was actually in the town of Baalbek, which is it's the Hezbollah headquarters of Lebanon. But anyway, so they say don't wander too far down the streets. In any case, there is an amazing ruin there called, it's Baalbek is the name of the ruins, but there's a place called the Heliopolis is the city of the sun, kind of what it's known as. So this one is basically wandering through Heliopolis in the Middle East, in the town of Baalbek. Heliopolis. Towering columns of Jupiter rise into the sun like infinite and boundless tributes to the orbital mythologies of the fortunes of the soul. Then the epiphany of the sudden temple of Dionysius, rituals of madness and ecstasy, theaters of the wild and unexpected. In the heat of this ancient city of solar magnificence, through stone quarries, hexagonal courts, podiums, granite, thunderbolts, and deities, I take pause in the open arenas, under porticos, beside altars, in the place of prophets and the temple of the goddess of love, where worship is immeasurable. Yes, I say, yes.
Wow, you got there, and it fed you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like travel.
Okay, so something small to end.
Something small. Something very small. Huh?
Well, not that small.
Well, we can go.
And also, I have to remark, your paint is what you paint as well. So double.
Yes. We'll go to another vortex piece to keep it sort of small.
Good.
And but because I like this little, it was a fun process. Vortex 4. I am born into a waking consciousness of feelings, phenomena, perseverance, courage, loss, the essence of external magnitude and cognition, free will, eternity, totality, death, emptiness, solar intuitions, the crystallization of the basic tenets of the soul.
Are the words intertwined with the images in these paintings?
Well, actually, the paintings are very simple. They're just there's a numeric, sort of a linear numeric 1, 2, 3 through 11. They're ink paintings, really, actually, more than paintings, and they're small in size. And so there's a semi-abstract line painting, and then on the side there's just a fragment of
And did the
poetry.
paintings come first, or did the words come first? How did it work?
You know, I think I was just noodling around with numbers and saw in these line numbers the concept of a vortex, and that led to the concept of a small show of paintings. I actually, when I paint, I do large canvases. I use generally house paint from the Home Depot or whatnot, and I do these big, as big as I can do, abstract pieces.
Wow.
With generally weaving a little bit of language. I call them language paintings, actually.
Yeah.
But this would be more like small pieces. So
Great.
that was that.
Well, I think on that note of all this richness of experience and talent and exploration and food and a great, a wild man of a performing father and a deeply rooted farmer of a mother. Look what they produced. Stefano Resta, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Neshama. The pleasure
A pleasure.
is mine.
Okay.